Hello Stampers, this is Carrie Vacanti with Stampiphany, a great Stampin' idea. I hope you're having a great day. Today I am going to make a slider card using the Nailed It bundle, stamp set and bundle. I already stamped my tools here, as you can see, on the Whisper White cardstock, and all the supplies will be listed in the description box below. Now, what I was doing here was just making a background with the various nuts and bolts that come in the stamp set. I just mounted them on the same block and just stamped them in some Smoky Slate. Beforehand, I had stamped a greeting. These two pieces here are going to be my slide out pieces, and I'll provide a link in the box below of all the sizes and the tutorial where I got it. I actually got this off of splitcoaststampers.com. I'm just rounding the corners, just two of them. Those are going to be the two corners that actually are on the outside. The straight edges there will be on the inside of the slider card, so I don't need to round those. I'm going to go through and color all of my tools. I'm just using my markers, but you could use anything that you like. You could use watercolor pencils, chalks, Copics, whatever is your favorite thing to color with. Once you have all of your tools colored, and I sped this up just a little bit, it's time to die cut those, and the matching die is great. I love it when there's a matching die set. It makes it so much easier when you're making a card, when you can just put those on your Big Shot, run them through, and cut them out, especially detail stamps like this. So now that all my tools are colored and die cut, we're going to go ahead and start assembling. Actually, no, we got to do the front, sorry. We're going to create the front, and so I just have a piece of craft cardstock, and I'm taking my T-ruler here, and I just want a nice subtle background like a pegboard. And so what I'm taking here is my black marker and just putting a little dot every ½ inch. And I'm doing the left side first, and that's going to be kind of my gauge, I guess you could say, where I will line my T-ruler up here on the right and then just do dots across the whole section. Now I could have made larger dots or holes, as you could say, but I didn't want a really big background or anything that would take away the attention away from the focal point, which is going to be our tools on the front when we get that all done. So as I put my dots, I just slide my T-ruler down, and now I just have a series of dots across the front. And that's pretty much done. Now we're just going to take that and attach it to my Dijon cardstock. And again, once all the sizes will be down in the description box if you'd like to make this exact card. Hopefully this just gives you an idea. You can do this with just about anything. Slider cards work with lots of different things. I made my first one years and years ago. I'd only been a demonstrator for maybe a year or two, and that was a long time ago. I've been a demonstrator now for about 18 going on 19 years, and so I've made lots of different cards, and this has been one of my favorites when I first saw it. So this piece of garden green cardstock has been cut. It's 5 1/4 by 11, and you can see here that it's scored, so I'll put my T-ruler here and just kind of show you where it's scored at. It's 11, so as you go across, you have this short end that's over here. And so my score marks are 2 1/2, and then 6 1/2, and then 10 1/2. And if I'm wrong, I'll make sure they're correct down in the description box, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were. And that little short little section there is actually going to be our slider mechanism. And what you need here is 1 1/4 square punch. You can use 1 3/8, but I'm using a 1 1/4 square punch. And what we're doing here is just punching out, not the entire square, but just a little section of it. It doesn't have to be any particular depth inside the cardstock, just enough so we can make a channel. And that's going to keep our plastic strip there in one spot so it doesn't come off the card or get bunched up or anything. So this piece of plastic is just the band that wraps around my Stampin' Up! Bags when orders come in. You can use any plastic sack that you have at home. Just cut it into a strip. I just happen to grab this because I like to use up every little bit that I can, so nothing goes to waste. And so I just have a nice strip of plastic right here, and it works really nice because plastic is slick, so it slides really well. So once you have that cut, we're going to put this in our channel here. And it's a little bit longer than what we need, but don't worry, we're going to trim that off when we're done. And I was going to go ahead and use my fast fuse on this first part, but I realized the fast fuse kind of chews up that plastic a little bit, so I would recommend using something different like a double-sided tape or a score tape. I wouldn't use liquid glue. It had to be some kind of double-sided tape. So you can see that I trimmed off the edge there. And one thing you need to pay attention when you're making your slider mechanism is where that seam is. And I'll mention that again later when we actually go to attach our sliding pieces. Excuse me. So when you fold this over, it's going to cover all of the mechanism, and we need to put our card in here so a little bit pokes out so the recipient has something to grab onto when they receive the card. So when we go to glue this down, we'll need to make sure that a little bit is poking out. Now if you want it to be flush against the side, one thing you can do is use a square punch or a circle punch to cut notches out of the side. Now the seam here, we have to pay attention of what direction it's going to be sliding, and we want to make sure that our starting position is in the opposite way that needs to be. So you can see me, it's going to be sliding that direction, so we want to put the seam all the way to the left, so when we pull that piece of paper there, it will slide and it won't get caught on the edge of the cardstock there. That'll stop it from working, and then the card's ruined. So I learned that the hard way, unfortunately. I had a card all put together, thought it was great. It slid once, and then I couldn't get it to work again because of that silly seam. So I learned from then on, make sure that that seam is in the right place. So I'm just taking some score tape here, and I recommend burnishing it down. I was really having a tough time getting the backing to come off, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I should really use my bone folder to rub on that, and then that should help it to come off. I tried to get it with my scissors, that didn't work, and even using my fingernail, it just wasn't coming down. So I recommend using your bone folder to just kind of burnish that down. That really helps it get to the stick, and then wedge your fingernail in between the tape and the backing and it should come off. So get your cardstock centered vertically, and then you just press down, and that should be in the position that it needs to be. Now it'll feel really loose right now, but that's okay. Once the card's put together and it's in its sleeve, it'll be more sturdy. So now we're going to measure up where we need to put our next piece of score tape, and we just want that to go right underneath here. And you notice I'm using my cards as a gauge, because if you put tape anywhere else other than where you see me putting it here, the mechanism will probably not work. If you prevent the slider from sliding, or if the cardstock ends up stuck to that back piece, it won't go anywhere. So we just want that tape on the plastic strip there. So now that both pieces are on there, I'm ready to close up my card. And you can put the tab on the outside like that, but I just prefer to put mine on the inside. So I'm going to take some score tape, and I'm actually putting it on the front. And that front piece that I'm putting on right there, I'm putting it right up against the score piece. And make sure you burnish it, because it does help the backing to come off. And it's just going to get folded down in there underneath my sliding piece, that little piece right there. It'll go underneath that, and it'll adhere right to the garden green to itself again. So that is just the way I like to do it. You don't have to do it that way. You can of course have that tab on the outside, and it will work just fine. I just like to tuck it in. I think it looks a little neater. So I'm just gently going to make sure that that lines up, and then I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish that so it's stuck really good. So now my card mechanism is all done, and you can see it just slides beautifully back and forth. I should have stamped my stamp a little, or made the card a little bit longer so that the entire greeting would show, but at this point it's all stuck down, and I'm just going to go with it. On the right hand side would be where I would put a gift card. Just be careful when you put it in there to make sure that it slides back and forth okay. Otherwise, you can always do a printed gift card off the internet and just make sure it's flush on that cardstock, and it should slide. So now we're mounting our pegboard piece here with all our dots, And now it's time to adhere our tools. And I'm going to do that with some dimensionals on the back. I think they need to be popped up a little bit. It adds a nice dimension to the front. And don't be afraid to use your dimensionals. I didn't want any of the tools to be sagging or anything, so I put quite a few on the back of each one of these. Now on the bottom of the screwdriver, I use every little bit of my dimensionals. They're completely used up by the time I throw the release tape away. So the outer edge is got these tiny little strips, and oftentimes I will use those for little spaces like this where it'll fit. So just take your dimensionals off and arrange your tools on the front how you like. You don't have to do it exactly the way I did, or you could, whichever you'd like to do. And just have them all popped up and just kind of space them a little bit there as you go along. This pegboard stuff always reminds me of my dad's pegboard at home in his garage. He's always got tools hanging everywhere, and he's always got pegboards all across the wall to hang all of his tools. So pegboards always remind me of my dad when I was a little girl walking in there, and he always had all his tools hung up. And by golly, if one was missing, he could tell you. And you heard about it if one was missing. So here I am cutting the happy birthday greeting. I'm just cutting down the middle of the side and then cutting towards the middle with my paper snips. Just giving each side a banner and just to give it a little more interest than just a straight cut. And then just to add a little bit more of an element, I took my Dijon marker and just did some faux stitching all the way around the tag there. Once I have that all finished, I'm going to pop this up as well. It'll help it stick to the card better. And instead of sticking them to the banner so they don't end up in weird places on the tools, I decided to just kind of like gauge where the banner would end up laying across the card and just peeling off the backing and sticking the banner like that. And I thought it would be better if I tucked the banner in the tools a little bit, so they're all just kind of one element. So this is the slider card. As I was sliding out and doing this, I realized that I didn't color in some of the letters on that greeting, which I should have done before I stuck it down. So, you finagle things the best you can. So I went ahead and took my Dijon marker and just straight up colored those in. Again, you could use whatever is your favorite device to color with, Copics, blenders, painting, whatever you're most comfortable with, you could do that. And I just carefully took my time and just colored in all the letters. You could even just do every other letter a different color or do a color letter pattern, whichever works for you. So once I got all of the letters colored in, it was pretty much done. Now I just need to get a gift card. If you ever find that you go outside your lines or something with your marker, a white gel pen is a great tool to have around. You can use that to kind of fill in the white spaces to clean it up and make it look tidier. I don't know what I was doing with my bone folder. I think I was trying to get it to lay a little flatter there. So this makes a great masculine card for just about anybody who loves tools or anybody that likes to build things and things like that. This card isn't really that hard to make. I wouldn't say it was too time consuming. It took me less than an hour to cut it and put it together. This particular card I made just last Christmas. Same type of building, same concept of building. I just used one of our Christmas sets, Santa's sleigh, and just made it to where you could see all of the reindeer. So that one was pretty fun to make, and that one took a little bit longer with all the die cutting, but it was still fun. I hope you enjoyed today's card. Hope it inspires you to get in your craft space and make something today. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you later.